There was a small chipped ceramic bird that sat on the windowsill in Mama's kitchen. Not the expensive kind, mind you, just a little thing, robin's egg blue, with one wing mended with clear glue. Papa had given it to her on their first anniversary, before the war, before the hardness settled into everything. Every morning, Mama would dust it with a corner of her apron, a ritual so quiet, so ingrained, you'd never notice, unless you were truly looking. One Tuesday, after Papa had been gone a year, maybe 2, I saw her dust it, then trace the mended wing with her thumb, and her eyes. They weren't looking at the bird. They were looking through it, at something only she could see, a grief so old it had turned to dust itself. That day, she didn't hum. She always hummed. And for a second, no one said a word. If this sounds like your silence, stay. You don't owe them your forgiveness, not anymore. And if you know a woman who carried too much for too long, give her this story. My sister Clara, she never saw that bird, not really. To her, it was just another trinket collecting dust. Clara always saw the surface, the perfectly ironed linen, the meticulously pruned rose bushes, the Sunday roast cooked just so. She prided herself on being the keeper of appearances, the one who upheld the family name, whatever that meant. I was the one who saw the fraying edges of Mama's apron, the tired slump of her shoulders when she thought no one was looking, the way her smile never quite reached her eyes after Papa died. Clara would tell Mama, "You look lovely today, Mama," and Mama would nod, a polite practice gesture. I would say, "Are you warm enough, Mama? Your hands are a little cold." And Mama would squeeze my hand, a silent acknowledgement of a different kind of truth. You call it tradition, but I was the only one bleeding from it. The year Mama started forgetting things, small things at first, like where she put her spectacles, then bigger things, like whether she'd had breakfast. Clara's visits became shorter, more hurried. She'd sweep in, a flurry of expensive perfume and sharp pronouncements about Mama's condition. She'd rearrange the pillows, check the expiry dates on the milk, and then, invariably, she'd look at me, a silent accusation in her eyes. "Are you managing, Evelyn? Really managing?" As if my entire existence wasn't already subsumed by managing Mama, as if I had a choice, as if she had ever offered to share the burden. I remember the day Mama lost her way in her own garden. She'd been out pickin' lavender, a habit since she was a girl, and I found her by the old oak, her face etched with confusion, the lavender clutched in her hand like a lifeline. I led her back gently, and she held onto my arm so tightly I could feel the tremor in her frail fingers. When Clara came that evening, I told her what happened. Clara just sighed, a long, exasperated sigh that seemed to drain all the air from the room. "Evelyn," she said, her voice tight, "we can't keep going like this. It's not fair to you or to Mama." She meant, of course, it wasn't fair to her, to her pristine image of a family. I didn't hurt them. I just finally stopped holding the guilt they gave me. The nursing home, when Clara first mentioned it, was a whisper, a suggestion that hung in the air like a phantom. Then it became a discussion, then a decision, then a foregone conclusion. Clara presented it as a logical solution, a necessary step. "They have nurses there, Evelyn, professionals. Mama will get the best care." She spoke of it like a business transaction, a matter of efficiency. I thought of Mama's chipped ceramic bird, of the way she'd look through it, into a past only she inhabited. I thought of her fear of strangers, of new places, But Clara was relentless. She had researched, she'd called, she'd found the perfect place. And I, exhausted, worn down, silent, I let her do it. I carried the weight of that decision like a stone in my gut every single day. The day we took Mama to the nursing home, it was raining. A soft, persistent drizzle that matched the ache in my chest. Clara had arranged everything, of course. A comfortable car, a quick, efficient transfer. She'd even packed Mama's favorite blanket, though I knew Mama wouldn't truly notice it amongst the newness, the strangeness. Mama was quiet. Too quiet, just clutching my hand, her gaze distant. When we arrived, the air was thick with the smell of disinfectant and something else, something cloying and sweet that tried to mask the scent of old age and fading memories. Clara, ever practical, spoke brightly to the staff, detailing Mama's habits, her likes and dislikes, as if a list could ever capture a lifetime. And for a second, no one said a word. I watched Mama's eyes as they darted around the sterile room, finally landing on a small framed photograph I'd placed on her bedside table. Papa young and laughing, holding a fishing rod. A flicker of something, recognition perhaps, crossed her face. Then it was gone. Clara patted Mama's arm. "You'll be so happy here, Mama. It's for the best." Her voice was firm, resolute. It was for the best for Clara, I knew. It freed her, allowed her to continue her perfectly ordered life without the inconvenience of a mother who was slowly slipping away. You call it tradition, but I was the only one bleeding from it. After we left, Clara went straight back to her life. Her charity lunches, her garden club, her carefully curated social engagements. She'd call me sometimes to ask if I'd visited Mama, her tone tinged with a mild curiosity, as if she were inquiring about a distant acquaintance. "How is Mama today, Evelyn? Still comfortable?" She never asked if Mama remembered anything, if she'd smiled, if she'd spoken a coherent sentence. Those details, the real threads of Mama's existence, were irrelevant to her. The guilt of Mama's silent suffering, the weight of her absence from her own home, settled firmly on my shoulders. I visited Mama every day, every single day. I'd sit by her bed, holding her hand, sometimes talking, sometimes just being present in the quiet, empty space that was now her world. I'd tell her about the garden, about the robin's nest outside her old window, about the small, chipped ceramic bird on the sill. I'd whisper these things, hoping some part of her, deep inside, would hear me, would remember. I didn't hurt them. I just finally stopped holding the guilt they gave me. One afternoon, months later, I was sitting with Mama. She was unusually agitated, pulling at the blanket, her eyes wide with a fear I hadn't seen before. "They took it," she whispered, her voice raspy, barely audible. "They took my bird." My heart seized. The ceramic bird, the one Papa had given her. It had been left on the windowsill in her old kitchen, abandoned. Clara had simply said, "We can't take everything, Evelyn. The house needs to be cleared." I had meant to go back for it, but the days blurred into weeks, and the task felt insurmountable. Now, seeing the raw distress on Mama's face, I knew. It wasn't just a bird, it was a fragment of her past, a tangible link to a love that had defined her. Clara hadn't just ignored the bird. She had ignored its meaning, its very existence as a sacred object to Mama. She had discarded it just as she had, in essence, discarded Mama. And for a second, no one said a word. That evening, I called Clara. I expected her usual dismissive tone, her practiced platitudes. Instead, when I told her about Mama's distress, about the bird, Clara scoffed. "Evelyn, honestly, it's a piece of pottery. Mama is confused. You're making too much of this." Her words, sharp and cold, were like a key turning in a lock I hadn't realized was on my own heart. In that moment, I saw Clara for what she truly was. Not just a sister who was blind to Mama's emotional landscape, but one who actively devalued it, who trivialized everything that mattered to Mama, and by extension to me. The betrayal wasn't in putting Mama in the home. It was in the casual cruelty of her indifference, the deliberate ignorance of Mama's inner world. It was in the quiet erasure of Mama's very essence. That phone call with Clara, her flippant dismissal of Mama's grief over a piece of pottery, was a hairline fracture, a tiny crack in the dam of my own long-held silence. It wasn't a dramatic breaking point, no shouting, no tears, just a quiet, cold clarity that settled over me. It was as if I'd been holding my breath for decades, and in that moment I finally exhaled, a slow, deliberate release of air that had grown stale with unspoken truths. I didn't rage. There was no energy left for rage, just a profound, almost surgical understanding of the landscape of our family and my place within it. And for a second, no one said a word. The visits to Mama continued, of course. My routine was a lifeline for both of us, a quiet rebellion against Clara's convenient narrative. I'd bring her small things, a freshly baked scone, a sprig of rosemary from the garden, things that appealed to the senses, even if the memory couldn't hold them. I'd talk about the weather, about the birds outside the window, about anything that might anchor her, however briefly, to the world she was losing. And sometimes, in those fleeting moments of lucidity, Mama would squeeze my hand and I would know, without a doubt, that she recognized me, that she felt my presence. That was enough. That was everything. You call it tradition, but I was the only one bleeding from it. Clara, meanwhile, became increasingly distant. Her calls grew less frequent, her excuses more elaborate. The nursing home was too far, her schedule too demanding. She'd send expensive fruit baskets or flowers, impersonal gestures meant to assuage her own conscience, not to comfort Mama. I stopped telling her about Mama's small breakthroughs, her occasional smiles, the rare times she spoke a recognizable word. These moments were sacred, and Clara's indifference would only diminish them. The space between us, already vast, widened into an unbridgeable chasm, paved with Clara's calculated neglect and my quiet resentment. I didn't hurt them. I just finally stopped holding the guilt they gave me. Then came the day the nursing home called. Mama had taken a turn. It was sudden, and yet in a way, it felt inevitable. I drove there immediately, the familiar ache in my chest sharper than usual. Clara, when I called her, said she'd try to come, but had a prior engagement she couldn't possibly cancel. "It's probably just a dip, Evelyn," she said, her voice annoyingly cheerful. "Mama's a fighter." The casualness of her words, the absolute lack of urgency, settled deep within me like a cold stone. It wasn't just the bird or the nursing home. It was a lifetime of Clara's convenient absences, her emotional amputations, her unwavering commitment to her own comfort above all else. When I arrived, Mama was sleeping, her breathing shallow. I sat by her side, holding her frail hand, feeling the fragile pulse beneath my thumb. I talked to her, whispered about Papa, about the garden, about the ceramic bird, the one I had finally gone back and retrieved, carefully mended, and now kept on my own windowsill. I told her how much I loved her, how I always had, how I always would. And as the hours passed and the light faded from the window, I felt a shift, a quiet release in the room. Mama was gone. Just like that. No drama, no last words. Just a gentle slipping away. After Mama passed, the silence in the house was immense. Not the gentle, lived-in silence of her presence, but an empty, echoing kind. Clara arrived the next morning, dressed in tasteful black, her face composed. She offered condolences, polite and distant, as if she were a guest at a formal event rather than Mama's daughter. She spoke of funeral arrangements, of legal matters, all in that efficient, detached tone she reserved for inconvenient necessities. She even managed a small, sad smile, a performance for the benefit of the few distant relatives who trickled in. And for a second, no one said a word. I watched her. This sister who had so effortlessly detached herself from Mama's decline, from the raw, messy reality of it all. She saw the end as a tidy conclusion, a problem solved. She didn't see the years of quiet erosion, the fading light in Mama's eyes, the daily struggle that had consumed my own life. She had outsourced her grief, her responsibility, and now she was here to claim her share of the inheritance, a duty she understood perfectly. You call it tradition, but I was the only one bleeding from it. The will reading was a stark affair. Clara naturally had handled all the arrangements. The lawyer, a stiff man with thin lips, read through the clauses quickly. Mama's small savings were divided. The house, what was left of it, was to be sold. The proceeds split equally. Clara nodded, satisfied. I simply listened, the words washing over me, meaningless in the face of what had truly been lost. Then the lawyer cleared his throat. And finally, he said, looking at me, there's a specific bequest for Evelyn. Clara's head snapped up. Her composure wavered just a fraction. I didn't hurt them. I just finally stopped holding the guilt they gave me. He then read a short handwritten note tucked into the main document. Mama's shaky script, almost illegible in places, but unmistakably hers. It spoke of love, of gratitude, of my Evelyn, who saw me, truly saw me, when no one else did. And then it mentioned the ceramic bird. To Evelyn, my little blue bird, for remembering what truly matters. It was just a sentence, a few lines, but in that sterile office, it landed with the force of a thunderclap. Clara's face hardened, a mask of disbelief and anger. The lawyer quickly moved on, but the air in the room had changed. Mama, in her quiet, fading wisdom, had seen. She had known. And she had found her own way to speak her truth, to leave a final, undeniable mark. Clara said nothing as we left the lawyer's office. Her silence was a cold, impenetrable wall, but her eyes, when they briefly met mine, held a flash of something I hadn't seen before. Not just anger, but a raw, unvarnished resentment. She had always been the favored one, the successful one, the one who managed everything. And in Mama's final act, Mama had stripped that illusion bare. Mama hadn't abandoned her. Mama had exposed her. The ceramic bird, mended and now sitting on my own windowsill, was more than just a trinket. It was a testament, a quiet, gentle execution of a truth that had been buried for far too long. The years since Mama's passing have settled into a quiet rhythm. Clara and I rarely speak now. Our paths, once intertwined by obligation and a shared history, have diverged completely. There are no dramatic confrontations, no final arguments, just the steady, widening silence of two lives choosing different directions. I don't seek her out, and she certainly doesn't seek me. The only communication is the occasional formal letter from her lawyer regarding some distant practical matter of the estate, each one a stark reminder of the cold transactional nature of her world. And for a second, no one said a word. I still visit Mama's grave sometimes. It's a peaceful spot beneath a sprawling oak. I don't go to mourn anymore. Not in the way one does in the raw aftermath of loss. I go to remember and to simply be. I talk to her sometimes, just quiet whispers about my day, about the garden, about the way the light falls through the leaves in the autumn. And always I tell her about the little ceramic bird, sitting on my windowsill, its mended wing facing the morning sun. It's a small thing, that bird, but it holds a universe of meaning. It's a testament to a quiet understanding, a connection that transcended words, even memory. You call it tradition, but I was the only one bleeding from it. The anger I once felt, the resentment that simmered beneath the surface for so long, has faded. It's been replaced by a quiet sense of peace, a calm acceptance. There's no bitterness, no desire for retribution. What would be the point? Clara lives her life as she always has, in a world built on appearances and convenient truths. She may never understand the depth of what she overlooked, what she sacrificed for the sake of her own comfort. And that's her burden, not mine. I no longer carry the weight of her expectations or the unspoken guilt she tried to transfer onto me. I didn't hurt them. I just finally stopped holding the guilt they gave me. My own life, freed from that heavy burden, has blossomed in unexpected ways. I volunteer at a local hospice now, sitting with people in their final days, holding their hands, listening to their stories. I see the quiet courage, the unspoken fears, the fierce love that defines their last moments. I see the families who truly show up and the ones who, like Clara, keep their distance. And in those moments, I understand with even greater clarity the preciousness of true presence, of authentic connection. I offer them what I offered Mama, an unwavering witness, a gentle hand, a quiet space where they can simply be. The revenge, if you can call it that, wasn't something I sought out. It wasn't an act of aggression or a dramatic reveal. It was simply the quiet act of living my truth, of finally releasing the burden of someone else's indifference. Mama's final gift, that small handwritten note, didn't just expose Clara, it liberated me. It affirmed that my quiet devotion, my endless presence, had been seen, understood, and valued. It was a gentle unburdening, a quiet justice that whispered, not screamed into the world. And in that whisper, I finally found my own voice, my own peace. The debt, the one I didn't even know I was carrying for all those years, was finally paid, not by Clara, but by Mama, and ultimately, by me.